Hello and welcome to La Rosa Reads. I'm Denise LaRosa and today I am so excited to share with all of you my February wrap-up. Let's talk books. So, wow to February. February was an unexpectedly pleasurable reading month for your girl. I discovered not one, not two, but 3 5-star reads. I just wasn't necessarily having low expectations of February, but it just turned out to be this pleasant surprise of wonderful, diversified reads, and I am here to share all of those with you today. The first book that I read in February is a book that I began in January and read into the beginning of February, and it is This Close to Okay by Leesa Cross-Smith. I have declared the year 2023 my year of Leesa Cross-Smith reads. I fell in love with this author through Half-Blown Rose, the novel that I read last year that just swept me away in so many ways. And this is now my second Leesa Cross-Smith book. It was really nerve-wracking going into this because my expectations were so high, or I don't know if it was my expectations, but I just had so much love for Half-Blown Rose. And I knew in my heart of hearts, simply by reading the synopsis, that This Close to Okay wasn't going to be as stellar of a read for me as Half-Blown Rose. Nonetheless, I left myself open to the reading experience, and it turned out to be a mixed bag. So we have a character by the name of Tally who is driving along and drives past a bridge that ends up being a location where Emmett was about to take his life. She pulls over, not knowing who this man is, ends up convincing him to get in the car with her and go to a coffee shop. He ends up staying at her house for 3 days, 2 nights. This is like over the weekend. Going to a Halloween party, her brother's Halloween party with her, dressing up in costume. And she knows like next to nothing about this man other than the fact that he was ready to take his own life. It just left me feeling so... I just felt like I was in a state of disbelief. Like, seriously, girl? And she's a therapist. Like, you're in your 30s. Who does this as a grown woman? It's just too dangerous, right? So, some way, somehow, Leesa Cross-Smith, through her eloquent, tender writing, leads the readers to actually be somewhat convinced that this strangers to friends to lovers in 3 days kind of thing can actually be a thing. And I just kept reading with curiosity. I have to admit, though, it just left me feeling kind of like, okay, I'm feeling it, but not really. So I'm hopeful, though, that her other reads, her other books will deliver for me. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't my jam either. So This Close to Okay was okay. But, a good time was right around the corner, friends, because after I put down This Close to Okay, I read Pride and Protest by Nikki Payne. This is a retelling, an adaptation of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and it gave me so much more than I expected. From the cover, you're looking at it and you're thinking, ooh, this might be a heavy read. And indeed, Nikki Payne does dive into a wide range of serious societal issues such as gentrification, mental illness, and interracial romance and relationships. But my goodness, it was hilarious. It was fun. It was full of humor and spice, y'all. So it was my first 5-star read of the year 2023, which is like so exciting for me because it was a romance and it had so many fun elements to it. I spoke about this at length on my first 5-star read video. If you haven't checked that one out, you need to do so after you watch this video. And then there was Elizabeth Acevedo, who is just probably one of the most gifted authors of our time, in my humble opinion. Books with Bonnie, I love you, boo. If you haven't checked out her channel, you need to do so. ASAP. She is a delight to follow. Her content is lovely. And she chose some books for my TBR in February, and The Poet X was one of them. Xiomara is a young girl, a teenager who is grappling with coming of age. And so that made her story familiar, but yet and still there were elements of her story, which is written in prose, that was unfamiliar to me because it offered a different perspective. This is a Latina young lady who has some lived experiences that I could relate to and also a lot that I could not relate to. So this was that classic book that gave you a mirror to affirm your identity and your lived experiences while also offering you a window to look into other lived experiences that are much different than one's own. She is growing up in New York City with a very strict family. Her parents are extremely rigid and strict. They are devout Catholics. And there's a reason behind that. They came into parenthood later in life. She and her twin brother were just these blessings and gifts, and they're really protecting them, kind of helicopter parenting in a way that leaves Xiomara feeling stifled and stagnant and unable to really step into her full self. You get to follow her with her ups and downs, her wins and joys and mistakes, as we all have made and continue to make in life. It's a part of the human experience. And Elizabeth Acevedo expresses Xiomara's life in such a way that leaves you feeling so attached and satisfied and lingering and hanging on to every single word. She's so gifted in the way that she writes, and having this book written in prose was just amazing. It was another 5-star read for me. So Bonnie, you did your girl good. And then I listened to an audiobook that I discovered through Alicia Keys' Instagram account, and it is titled Lighter. Let go of the past, connect with the present, and expand the future. This is a book by Yung Pueblo. I am unfamiliar with this wonderful human being that just gives us so many words of wisdom. So it was interesting because once I started listening to this book, I ended up kind of diving in deeper into some of his other works, just seeing what this wonderful human being is about, because this book was so inspiring, yet didn't really give me new enlightenment. I have been on a self-care journey for at least 5 years now, intentionally. And so what this author offers as far as words of wisdom, there really aren't a lot of aha moments. However, that doesn't mean this is a book that, those of us who have already been on the journey should not pick up. He does a wonderful job of giving you insights and reminders. It feels like he's wrapping his arms around you in a hug and embrace. He does express himself with such love and care and empathy and compassion that you find yourself not going aha, but ah. So it was delightful. It was nice. And I'm so glad that I had a chance to listen to that audiobook. And finally, y'all, I read Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. Okay, this is my second Octavia E. Butler book. The first one was Parable of the Sower. This is a book that my friend Katie has been telling me for years, literally years, that she feels I would absolutely fall in love with it, that it encompasses everything that I love about books and experiences and grappling with race and American history. And so here we are. I did it. And oh my gosh, it was my third 5-star read of February of the year so far. So Dana is a Black woman married to a white man. They both are authors. They're moving into a new home. And as Dana is putting away all of their books into their new library, their home library, she ends up having these episodes of fainting and passing out. And when she awakens, she is in another place and time. So yes, we have time travel. And the place and time that she's living in, experiencing, is during enslavement. So being a Black woman in the 1970s, married to a white man, and then waking up in the middle of enslavement, as a Black woman, as you can only imagine, is just like a shell shock and traumatic and dramatic. And I'm telling you, Octavia E. Butler delivers on all fronts. Her husband even ends up traveling back in time with her. She makes these trips a handful of times, and she's making these trips back because she is connected to a young white boy from that time period that is also connected to her ancestry, to her family lineage. So there's so much happening, and the way that Octavia E. Butler takes us on this journey and has us traveling with Dana is done so seamlessly, so like with such curiosity. Like, you find yourself being curious and connected to the story throughout both like the 1970s and the 1800s. Whenever she is traveling back in time, she being Dana, and to go back and forth between these time periods that are very distinctly different is not easy. I mean, not everyone can do this, but of course, the legendary Octavia E. Butler does it to perfection. It is the quintessential classic science fiction novel that I think will go down in time, continue to go down in time as one of the best science fiction works. I am so happy that I read Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. So I've been wanting to read Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan for quite some time, and I even checked it out of the library a while ago. Thank goodness for automatic renewals. I love my library. But I could not pass up the opportunity to listen to Kennedy Ryan's wonderful audiobook, Coming Home. So, Before I Let Go is collecting dust on the shelves, but Coming Home was in my ear and just delivering in every way. So we have two characters, a man and a woman, a Black man and a Black woman. Gorgeous. Like, the cover is just mwah, chef's kiss. So we have two gorgeous human beings, Touré and Naomi. They are both attending their alma mater's centennial celebration, and their alma mater is an HBCU, also known as a historical Black college or university. They are excited to go back. They both study journalism, and they are now very accomplished in their own rights. So Touré is one of those accomplished reporters who goes out in the field into dangerous situations. He's known globally. And Naomi wakes us up every morning, fictionally, on a morning show, and they are just living their best lives. But yet, they experienced a love deferred. These two never quite realized the romance that was between them in college, but yet and still, here we are at the centennial celebration. Could they rekindle or fire up something that never got started? Well, you know that Kennedy Ryan, if you don't know, you need to discover that Kennedy Ryan makes magic happen between these two characters. We have a fun, light novella. Even the side characters were delightful to follow and listen to. We have romance, we have steam, we have a great storyline that was just really sweet. I would describe this as a sweet novella. I loved it, and it is getting me all the more excited to read Before I Let Go. Kennedy Ryan, I think you're going to be sticking around in my library. So I was really ambitious with my reading plans for February. I do wish I had have gotten to some more books, including the books that Bonnie recommended to me. There are two more books, Bonnie, that you recommended to me for my February TBR that I promise you I am going to try my hardest to get to. Unfortunately, time flew away from me, and I only got a chance to read Moonrise over New Jessup. This was so hyped on Bookstagram. I could not wait to dive in. I checked it out of the library before it even arrived. I actually was able to place a hold on it before it arrived at the library. So that's how much I was anticipating reading this book. This book was also the February selection for Diverse Spine's Spine of the Month. So I love following Diverse Spines, as some of you regulars know. I was looking forward to reading this February book selection and watching Jamie's interview the author herself at the end of the month. Alice is a Black woman who grew up in rural Alabama during the 1940s and 50s. She is finding herself at a crossroads where both of her parents are deceased. Her sister is in Chicago. She had migrated north, And she has a situation arise that forces her out of her lifelong home. And she just gets on the bus with very little money and with the goal of meeting her sister in Chicago. She runs out of money and ends up not far from her hometown in this new place to her, New Jessup. She walks off the train to take a break. She's looking for entrances for colored people only because it's 1957, right? So she's looking to see where can she enter restaurants? Where can she drink? What water fountain can she drink from? And she sees absolutely no signs. And the reason why she sees no signs or doesn't see signs is because New Jessup is a Black town that was created by Black people for Black people, and their goal is to keep it Black, baby. They want to embrace segregation and build up their wealth. This is a very wealthy community where Black people can see themselves in everywhere and in every way. And so she is like, wait a minute, I need to stay here. This is where it's at. And she meets her future husband. She's embracing this new way of living. It's like a culture shock to her, but she's ready for it. And then her husband surprises her because he has another agenda that goes against all that New Jessup is founded on, including her father-in-law. Like, her father-in-law helped find and discover and create this community. And so she's at odds because she's embracing this community while also supporting her husband and his efforts for integration and his efforts to see Black people in ways and in things that the community members of New Jessup are not ready for and do not embrace. So she's got to cover up all the stuff that her husband's doing while embracing being a citizen of New Jessup. It is quite an interesting journey. I will say that this book doesn't have a standout climactic moment. So that was one of the things that was a little hard for me, because in reading this book, I fell in love with the town. The town itself was a character, and Alice, the main character, was phenomenal. Her husband, Raymond, and all the community members, particularly the older community members, were fantastic to follow. Great characters with a lot of depth to them. But I was looking for a moment, and I never really got a moment. And so the reading was a little bit of a drag, but yet meaningful, if that makes sense. So all in all, will say it was an interesting and good time. I was hoping for more that would lead me to believe in Alice's love for New Jessup. She just got off that train, and I feel like the author didn't give us a whole lot of reasons to believe in and buy into Alice's integration into this community and her passion and love for it. If she was so committed to it, I needed to see and feel that. I needed more backstory. I needed more experiences from her in New Jessup before she got married. So if you were interested in this book, I would definitely say pick it up. If it's something that you're just curious about, yeah, give it a try. If you weren't really thinking about this book, you're not really missing a whole lot, I don't think. But I think the writing's impeccable. I think the author is really talented. So I will give her kudos. And yeah, if you've read it, let me know. All right. So that is that, friends. That was my February 2023 reading experience. What did you read in February? Let me know by hopping over in the comments below. And if you want to know what I'm up to in March, check out my March TBR video right here. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.